Colonel, I implore you. We must destroy that tower.
Sergeant, that tower is one of the oldest and most treasured of all the historically important structures. I'm not gonna be the son of a bitch responsible for turning 1,000 years of history into dust. The tower stands!
Hello, 9th Age community, and hello, YouTube. This is Charles with Evershade Gaming, and I'm bringing you another 9th Age battle report. This is Game 4 at Siege of the Tower. The scenario has two kind of fun things to it. So we get a giant in Games 4 and 5, and we also have a rule called Arcane Portal. So what the Arcane Portal is, there's pretty much every table had a rune or something, rune-esque, and you move it to the center of the board, and any wizard who is within 12 inches of it may gain +1 to cast and to spell if any giant is within 12 inches. So a pretty interesting rule for a scenario. The deployment is Refused Flank, which is the diagonal deployment, which is always an interesting game setup. And then our secondary objective, so we have the rune, special rule, we have the giant. The secondary objective is to hold your ground, and that's pretty much being within range of the rune as well. So the center board is important for Game 4. It wasn't really that important for our game. We kind of we played a little bit differently than that. So my opponent is playing Highborn Elves, and he has a Master of the Cranag Tower as his general with the Dragonforged Armor, Demon Hunter's Helm. He's got a great weapon, the Shrider's Syringe, and the Spell Scroll. I really like these Masters of the Cranag Tower. I think they're really useful. I like their utility, at the very least. They're not as powerful as a normal Prince, they're not as powerful as a normal caster, but I think they're all around like a good mix for a character. And then he's got a commander, Queen's Companion BSB, pretty kind of simple. He's got the Spear of the Blazing Dawn, which is an interesting choice. I guess kind of helps him, if a monster runs into that block. And then he has the Ring of Fire. And then you saw it here first, everybody. This list is 2 wizards. That's correct, 2 wizards. Probably something only Highborn Elves can do. But you saw it first here on Evershade Gaming. And it's just an Aspad Scholar with 4 divination spells, Book of Ladies, and the Gleaming Robe, which is also pretty interesting. So he's got a pretty potent magic phase. And then he's got 2 blocks of 14 archers, the Reavers, 29 spears with the Flaming Banner to use. He's pretty much takes alchemy spells with his Cranag Master, and then 2 times 14 Sword Masters, which scares me. 3 Seaguard Reapers, a Giant Eagle, and 15 Queen's Guard Companion. My list is in the first Siege of Tower battle report. I can also post it in the description if that will help. For my opponent's spells, the Aspad Scholar with Divination Magic has the Stars Align, Fate's Judgment, Look to the West, and Scurrying. So good spells. He probably would have rather had the Unerring Strike instead of Fate's Judgment, because it would be better against my Dread Prince, but that's okay. His Master Cranag Tower is using Alchemy for all his spells, and he has Word of Iron, great spell, Quicksilver Lash, also great spell, and Glory of Gold, which I'm on the fence about as somebody who played with Alchemy this entire tournament. I guess I didn't really need the reroll swoons of like a combination there, because I already had the Flaming Banner, didn't really need the Armor Piercing, so I didn't really ever use it this entire tournament. And I know people like it though. And then he also just has, the Ring of Fire, so he's got a Fireball, and then his Aspad Scholar comes with Drained Magic. Can't forget that. So looking on to my spells, my level 4 got Word of Iron, great spell, Molten Copper, wonderful spell against Elves, Corruption of Tin, not so good against my opponent here, doesn't really have too many good armor saves, and then Transmutation of Lead, awesome spell. If I can get that off against a Swordmaster unit, I pretty much save any unit against them. So starting deployment, this is what my side looks like. I ended up dropping to go first because we both had a lot of, I would say he had more shooting than me with all the bows. So I have Dark Raiders, a Giant, that's one of my Raptor Chariots. My Lord is behind the Giant. 2 Bolt Throwers in the woods, my Harpies in the woods, another Raptor Chariot behind some Executioners. And then next to my Executioners is my Altar and my Spearmen. I have my Repeater Auxiliaries kind of turned sideways in the field. and then more Dark Raiders and my Hunting Chariot all the way on the right. Or I guess the left there in that picture. And then my opponent's deployment, so he's got his big block of Spearmen, his Masterly creating towers in the Spearmen. He's got one unit of 14 Swordsmen in front of an Archer unit, and then another Archer unit in the forest, so they're going to be hard to kill with my shooting. 3 Bolt Throwers in a row, all just ready to kill some elves. And then his Queen's Guard kind of behind the hill, his Reavers at the top of the hill, an Eagle, and then the Frost Phoenix is actually his Giant this game. Sometimes some people didn't have Giants. I luckily play Orcs and Goblins, so I had a Spear Giant. And he has Swordmasters mine, the Giant and the Eagle. So I Vanguard up my Dark Raiders just to put them behind this hill. I don't really have too many grand plans for these guys other than redirect in the game and, maybe do a little bit of shooting on those Spearmen, pick off a couple guys. Move my Dark Raiders up here. I believe he decides not to move the Reavers, or he might actually move them just a little bit forward. So Dread Elves turn 1. I use the Alter ability to give myself a 5-up ward save against artillery, because that'll help me against the Bolt Throwers. I move up with everything. I get my general behind the hill. I just kind of move the Dark Riders, 9-inch swords, and no DTs to shoot at the spears, move the Giant over, come on, get him behind the hill, move the Raptor Chariots up as much as possible, move the Executioners into the Rune. And pretty aggressive with my Spear unit too, and then I just turn my Repeater Auxiliaries to do some shooting, and I have the Hunting Chariot going after his Giant. Magic is 4-3, and my first spell is Dispelled. I can't remember exactly what it was, and then I fail my Ring of Fire. So, in the shooting phase, between the Bolt Throwers and the Dark Raiders, do 5 wounds. I'd much rather shoot at, those Swordmasters or Archers, but they're just kind of hard to shoot at in the forest. I couldn't remember why I took these pictures, and then I remembered my opponent has a really wonderfully painted army. I would say Hybrid Elves are probably the prettiest armies you can have, and I always say that rudely, but they're just one of the always nicely. It's just one of the armies that always looks nice when it's fully painted. There's a lot you can do with the colors, which is cool too. At the start of Highborn Elves turn 1, there are no charges. He moves up with his Giant. He moves up with his Swordmasters. He's redirecting with his Reavers. I think I tried to shoot at him, I just couldn't do any wounds. And then he's kind of pulling back with his sisters and his Eagle. And then he moves his Spearmen way up. It's 10 inches forward, and then he's kind of just keeping those archers safe. He turns one of the archers to face the Dark Raiders in the waters. The magic phase is 4 dice to 3. I let Scurrying get off on his Spearman block, because I think I'm just going to chaff them with my Harpies, and then am able to stop Quicksilver Lash on my General, or one of my Chariots. In the shooting phase, he kills one of the Dark Raiders in the waters. He kills another Dark Raider over on the other side of the field. And he kills 4 Executioners. I believe this was just with one of the Archer units, or maybe this was the Queen's Guard shooting here. So no ward saves. And then he kills another 4 or 3 more with the Bolt Thrower, which I thought was funny because I just wasn't making it. I didn't make any 5 ward saves. Thankfully, they got hard cover in those runes there, so it's a little bit hard to hit them, but all hits. It's a lot of hits are still going through. So at the start of Dread Elves turn 2, I want to get rid of this chap, so I put my Spearman block into those Reavers. I kept up the 5-up ward from the Altar 2 against artillery. And then I trapped with my Harpies against the Spearman block. I'm moving my Chariots this far forward. I'm hoping it's impact hits. They could probably beat those Swordmasters. Move my General over to threaten his shooting. Move my Giant over to do the same. And then I kind of pull my Repeater back. I want to shoot at those Swordmasters. And then those Dark Raiders couldn't really fit on that steep hill, but they're chaffing the Swordmasters. And my Hunting Chariot moves over to shoot the Giant. In the magic phase, it's 10 to 5, so I get word of Iron Off, but my opponent scrolls it. And I wasn't expecting any combat, so I Transmutation of Lead these Archers. so they're only strength 2 shots. And then I believe I get Molten Copper off over here, but with no flaming attribute, so I only do like 2 or 3 wounds. And then I also get the Ring of Fire off, but it only does 1 or 2 wounds as well. Alright, so it might have been the Ring of Fire that did wounds. I think he was able to dispel the Molten Copper, which is wise, because that makes the Ring of Fire better too. In the shooting phase, I kill a couple Sword Masters here on this side of the field. My bolt throwers pick on the Sword Masters in the forest, and they do 3 wounds. Or, my Sword Masters and my Raptor Chariots. The Raptor Crossbows and those Raptor Chariots will surprise you every now and then and do like a wound or 2, and it's just wonderful. Combat, have no problem beating the Reavers, and I overrun to get closer to that Queensguard unit. Oh, my Hunting Chariot also put 2 wounds on the Giant in the last turn, but the start of Hibernal's turn 2, he charges the Sword Masters, or the Sword Masters and the Dark Raiders. I flee with them, and he decides to pursue, and he attempts to charge the Giant into the Repeater Auxiliaries. They stand and shoot, and I believe they might do a wound, but the Giant doesn't make it, and the Sword Masters complete their charge against the Dark Raiders. So probably not a good use of those Dark Raiders, but I need to hold those Sword Masters up. On the other side of the field, he charges his Spear block into the Harpies, and the Harpies are going to stand and take it, and they're going to try and kill a Spearman, maybe 2. We'll see if they get lucky. Looking at the rest of my opponent's movement, he puts those Sword Masters in front of my general to block his shooting. He kind of keeps his Queensguard where they're at. He moves his Eagle to chaff the Spear block again, and he's just going to get ready to shoot me. So in the magic phase, it's another good phase here, I believe. Yep, it's 12 dice to 6. He gets the Glory of Gold off on these guys. I just have to let that go. Can't really stop it. And then he puts the attribute on my Dread Prince, which is what you want to do with Glory of the Gold. So pretty much I can't put my Dread Prince in those Sword Masters. Not that I would want to put my Dread Prince in those Sword Masters. He only has 1 armor save, but now he really can't. And then he gets Fate's Judgment off of my Lord, and I let this go, and I pass all my armor saves. It's pretty much the same story that I had all tournament. It's like, oh, Fate's Judgment? Okay, let it go. Pass all my armor saves. And then I believe and then I stopped the Stars Align, because he was, he put it on a bubble and it would affect a lot of his shooting. But in the shooting phase, he still does, kills like almost a rank of the spears off. Oh, actually, no, he shot at my Giant with his archers, the strength 2 archers. I made a 6 of ward save with it. I thought that was pretty awesome. My opponent forgot to, test to reform his Sword Masters during the charge phase, and I didn't really mind letting him do it here, and he passed the leadership test and they reform, which looks a lot worse for those repeaters. And then over here, I believe the Harpies did kill 1 Spearman. I think they killed 1 Spearman, but he easily crushes them, and now he's kind of looking at maybe taking some charges. So start a Dreadle turn 3. I do the Alter charge ability, and I put it on one. I think I put it on the closest bolt thrower to the. No, I put it on the archer unit, the closest archer unit to the executioners, and I target the executioners at them. Yep, this is the unit. It's got that bolt thrower near it. They're just poking out of the forest, so they're a great target for the executioners to make, and the executioners make it, which is great. I think I needed a 9 or a 10 on the roll, so it's right. So long charge. I put my spears with the altar into the eagle because I can just kind of clear up that chaff, get up that Queensguard unit, especially now that I've getting his shooting engaged. And my Raptor Chariot failed its stupidity test, unfortunately, or the one that's in front of the spear block right now, which is really unfortunate. So he stumbled forward 6 inches too, and when that happened, I pretty much decided I didn't want to put anything into the spears anymore. Otherwise, the giant in the rear and the 2 chariots in the front probably would have broke that block. It's the first time in the tournament that I've actually failed the stupidity test and it was negative, so it had to happen at one point. In the magic phase, it's 4/4, and I don't get any spells off, or my opponent spells them, either or. And in the shooting phase, the repeaters, they open up and they do like 7 wounds to the Swordmasters, but he makes 3 6-ups, so I only do 4 wounds there. And in the close combat phase, I think he kills a decent amount of executioners actually, but we easily rip through the entire unit of archers. I think he was almost like 5 or 6 or something like that. It's pretty good for just his strength 3 attacks. And then over here, we easily kill the eagle, and we just reform to looking straight at those Queensguard. At the start of Highborn Elves turn 3, he charges the giant at the repeaters. I stand and shoot. Then he charges the repeaters with the Swordmasters. I flee. The Swordmasters redirect into the spear block. His spears charge my chariot, which I have to hold. And then he fails with the giant. He also fails with the Swordmasters, which was amazing because that would have just been awful. I would have held up, but I would have had to reform to deal with those guys. And I did not want to deal with that. And then he obviously, easily makes it into the chariot that was like 5 inches away from him. He moves the Queensguard to be right in front of the spear block. They have quick on fire, so they don't really care if they move. They don't really care if they, I charge. And then he doesn't have too much more movement. He moves one of his archer. He moves his last remaining archer block to kind of start, shooting something else. And then he moves the Swordmaster to get away with the giant. My opponent's magic phase is 9/6, and he does Word of Iron on his spearmen. I think just the +1 version. And I let that go because that chariot's gonna die anyway. He does put the attribute on, I think, the giant in this case. He attempts another Fate's Judgment at my Lord, and I stop all the armor saves. And then he shoots my... This was so crazy. He shoots my Legionnaire block, and I take like a bunch of wounds, and I fail an LD9 rerollable test, and I flee away from the Queensguard. The Queensguard just do so many wounds. And then in the combat phase, he easily kills that one Raptor Chariot, and he overruns to be right there. So Highborn Elves had a crazy turn 3. He does get a divination spell off because he puts the attribute on the Swordmasters. At the start of Dread Elves turn 4, I charge my Raptor Chariot at his Queensguard because now I need a way to deal with that unit. And the stand and shoot kills the thing. Oh my gosh! He did like 6 wounds, but I failed a lot of armor saves too because that was a full wound chariot. This was wild. So I charged my giant at the Swordmasters, thinking like I'm gonna have to deal with them. I'm gonna have to try and get transmutational let off. Whatever I have to deal with. I got to get through these models. He flees. He fails a 3d6 test, like a cold-blooded test, and rolls trip 6s, and they flee through the archers. Oh, it's so amazing. And my giant's like, okay, cool. Let me redirect into these archers. So huge swing there, and almost as big as it was. Pretty much like these 2 huge leadership fails back to back. My Legionnaires and my altar failing a rerollable 9, and him failing a leadership 9 test on 3 dice dropping the lowest. So amazing swings. I reform with both my Legionnaires and my Repeater Auxiliaries, and I get Word of Iron off on this unit because I'm not that far away from. I think I have the +2 version too. I'm not really that far away from the my opponent's Citizen Spears at this point, and I also put the attribute on these guys. My magic phase was 7/4 dice, so not bad at all. And I attempt to get Molten Copper off on those dudes, those Swordmasters, but I fail. In the close combat phase, my Raptor Chariot goes ham! Oh my gosh, turns up big time. We have 7 impact hits, kills 6 Queensguard, which only makes me more frustrated that my Raptor Chariot wasn't in the front giving impact hits too. Oh, so sad. But he does pass his leadership test. He doesn't kill the chariot, and he passes the leadership test. Giant also turns up big time, crushes the archers. I think I do like 6 wounds. I get a 6th thunderstomp. I think I do over 9 wounds. He does maybe 1 wound to me. Easily auto break him, run him down, run the Swordmasters down. Giant is a thing of beauty. They should just have him in the Dread Elf army all the time, if you ask me. Actually, now I'm imagining every army having access to a giant, and it's kind of glorious. It sounds amazing. They should just do it. Come on, 9th Age. Hybernell's turn 4, he attempts to charge his giant, which I think, his giant really didn't do much this game because, to be honest, it's not a giant model. I think that's its only flaw. It's not a Frost Phoenix, it's a giant this game. It tries to charge the Spear Block, but it fails. He also tries to charge my repeaters, my Prude Auxiliaries, with his spears, and he fails as well, which I'm okay with. And then at the start of his magic phase, it's 6-5. He gets Gloria Gold off on this unit to increase his armor piercing. Which now I think about it, it's kind of strange they did that because he already had flaming attacks. I don't know, maybe he was expecting me to get Word of Iron on again. But that is the only spell my opponent gets off. I was able to stop everything else. These Swordmasters did charge the flank of the Hunting Chariot. And between the Swordmasters and the Queen's Guard, they kill off my Hunting Chariot. I think it only had 2 wounds. His Spear of the Blazing Dawn dude did 2 wounds the previous turn. And then, I haven't really been taking pictures of it, but just to let you know, my Executioners had no problem killing Bolt Throwers, so they ended up killing all the Bolt Throwers between all the turn they charged the Archers and just kept overrunning. And this is actually where we called the game. We ran a little bit low on time in this game. I think at this point we had, we just got the 15-minute warning, I think when he started doing his magic phase. And, we just were like, let's call it. I might get a full turn, but you're definitely not going to get a full turn. So it ends up being a 1485 difference in battle points, which is a 13-7. But since we called it right then and there, I had the objective because I had my 2 scoring units, or 2 of my scoring units, next to the ruins, and he only had the 1 scoring unit. So it was pretty iffy. I think it would have been interesting to play that game out. My Hunting Chariot kept doing a couple wounds, 1 or 2 wounds at a time to that giant. So it's like that giant only had 3 wounds left. The Swordmaster is a little bit diminished. I still had the block of Executioners nearby. His Spear block was diminished. So it would have been really interesting to see how the rest of that game turned out. The big thing, I think, is I had my 2 Bolt Throwers sitting in the woods still. I'm completely, protected. Nothing's really even close to engaging them. And I actually forgot to move my General turn 4. So he was just kind of sitting. He was sitting there. He got kind of mixed in with my opponent's dead pile, and he was just sitting there. So definitely the game was leaning in my favor. So I don't even feel too. It doesn't even feel wrong to have called it there, and I got the objective, and I won. So it ends up being a 16-4, which is pretty good because so far in this tournament I haven't been doing all that well. I want to thank everybody for watching, and I'll have Game 5 up pretty soon.